Hey, I'll see you on tour in Las Vegas, Chicago, and Grand Rapids. In Chicago, it's stand-up and a live panel show. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and make sure you go to jimmydore.com. Don't you think it's kind of crazy that, well, first of all, they demonetize it, but they let me, I brought on this professor emeritus from the University of Alaska, Fairbanks, or Anchorage, maybe. He debunked Building 7, and he showed that there's no way it fell down because a plane hit another building 100 yards away. And so they, at least YouTube, why will they'll let me tell that story? They demonetized it, obviously, but aren't you surprised that over 2 decades later, there's still no mainstream news that's gonna, I mean, even close? Is it because we only have? Is it because of the Telecommunications Act and there's only 6 news billionaires owning that? Is that it? What do you think?
Well, that's certainly part of it. If people want to deep dive on it, I did a documentary on the media matrix that's all about the development of mass media and how basically from Gutenberg to this point has been essentially the story of how ruling oligarchs and the ruling class have attempted to try to cork that bottle of the free flow of information. And that's taken different forms in different eras, but the most effective form of communication control that was ever devised was the corporate oligopoly control of the mass media that took place, that really reached its zenith by the end of the 20th century, so that everyone was getting all of their news and information and media and entertainment from the same handful of corporations. The internet revolution threatened to completely upend that, which is why they are furiously trying to stuff that cork back in the bottle.
So that was the reason why Bill Clinton was the reason why they said they allowed Bill Clinton to consolidate the media from 50 giant media corporations, which are still giant companies, down to 6, which is what he did with the Telecommunications Act, was because of this new thing called the internet. And it was going to be this revolutionary thing. And then there's going to be millions of citizen journalists, and there's going to be all these. And so you don't need to have those strict rules, those rules of like, you can't own a newspaper and a radio station and a TV station and this, all that stuff's gone. And there's only 6. So that was supposed to be the reason. But now that it actually is working the way they said it would, the internet, we now find out from the Twitter files that they're completely censoring. The government is now pressuring social media to censor. And so I know I've been a victim of that. You've been a victim of that. And I know if there was ever a YouTube files, it would come out that there was an email from somewhere in the government to YouTube to come at me because they came at me for accurate information. I was reporting that the vaccine didn't stop transmission or contraction, which now everybody just takes for granted that it doesn't, because they admitted they didn't even test to see if it did, even though they were saying it did, and that it would never get us out of this pandemic because it was a leaky vaccine that didn't stop transmission or contraction. So I don't know.
Well, okay, a couple of things to say to that. One is you're exactly right. The very things that we now know and take for granted were literally verboten on YouTube back at the time. I know this because one of the videos that got censored at that time, before they scrubbed my whole channel, was called The Future of Vaccines. It was December of 2020. I was talking about all of that research that was already there. No, they didn't even test for transmission or anything like this. No, it's all, I was pointing to their documents. But again, that got scrubbed from YouTube, so that's part of the point. But let me have a controversial take here, because everyone's reaction to this seems to be, well, what we need is for the government to come in and tell YouTube that you can't censor people based on their views or something like that. But that to me is completely the wrong direction that we should be heading with all of this, because the real point of the internet revolution and what was truly so freeing about it was that we didn't all have to congregate in the same few areas like we did back in the old days with the New York Times and the Washington Post and these other arbiters of our reality. Suddenly you could be Joe Schmo with your own blog, your own little corner of the internet. And then we all started congregating on these same few social media sites and deciding that that is the internet. And now that's the public square. So we all need a space on that. But I would say to people who are arguing for that, what imaginary committee, what people are you going to appoint to that board that's going to decide who is rightfully allowed a place on this platform and who isn't, and in what way, and how do you write those rules, and who gets to write those laws? Because I'm holding my breath for that to work out for us for a change, right?
Right.
No, I think that's the wrong idea. The point is decentralization. We need to be supporting those platforms that are about decentralizing rather than centralizing our information. Peer-to-peer is the way the internet was literally structured to work. Why are we breaking that in order to all congregate in these same controlled servers?
I don't.
Extreme manipulation is my guess.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just think that there's these, for whatever reason, the human psyche likes to have a centralized places to meet and exchange ideas. And so now there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's YouTube, there's Instagram, and and TikTok, which we've been kicked off of TikTok. But I mean that's what gives it powerful. It gives it power because a lot of people can have access to it and things can go viral in that way. And I think the problem is that the social media companies now act as a publisher, and they don't get held to the account. They can go in and censor, which is them acting as a publisher, but then you can't sue them. Acting as a publisher. So because they have that protection from the government. So I would say that they don't get to act like don't you think if we just took away their immunity from that and got rid of the fact that they do get to censor, there's already like I've always made the case that there's already laws in place. There's already police enforcement agencies. There's already attorney generals in every state. And if someone's doing something illegal on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, there already are these things in place to go get them. Mm-hmm. I don't need Zuckerberg or Twitter or Google to come to be policing my speech. There's already agencies out there to do that. That's what I think. All right. What do you think about what do you say to that?
I completely understand where you're coming from. And I'm going to be the actually guy here and say, well, okay, but no one is disputing, for example, YouTube has their policy, no pornography on YouTube. And no one is saying, damn it, but pornography is free speech, First Amendment right, I can post pornography anytime I want. So YouTube must let me post pornography. No one is making that argument because we all understand, no, it's YouTube's platform. They can choose their level of moderation, what they want and what they don't want on that platform. My choice is to be or not be on that platform, to support it or not support it. And I understand what you're saying about the network effect, but the technology of a YouTube, of a Facebook, of a Twitter, of a TikTok is about centralized servers in which we're all connecting to the centralized servers owned by Musk or Zuckerberg or whoever it happens to be in charge of YouTube today. But BitTorrent, PeerTube, the library network, the way it was originally set up to work, etc., are based on peer-to-peer connection where there is no central server. There's no one who can step in between a peer-to-peer connection and censor what's going on there. The data is not stored in any central place where it can be limited in that way. And if we put 1/10 of the amount of effort into supporting platforms that were based on this true decentralization technology, rather than spending all our time worrying what YouTube and Twitter are doing, we could probably actually accomplish something much more valuable for the long term.
Well, that's a message that could really gain some traction if it was on YouTube.
Wait, wasn't
you know what? You're not
Parler,
wrong.
Didn't they purposely destroy one that was a competition? Like, I think it was Parler. Or not mine, just Parler.
Yeah, Parler. They took,
why did you make your own Then all of a sudden,
they did.
They stepped in and ruined and destroyed it.
Yeah.
So how do you even do that? Like compete with them? They will destroy you.
Yeah. Well, that had to do with using Cloudflare and other centralized technologies. So yeah, I understand. It's not going to be easy. I'm not a pie in the sky utopian here. It's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. But the technology literally does exist for us to decentralize in the way the World Wide Web was originally supposed to work. And I'm sure you have a few gray hairs, as I tend to have them as well. I'm sure you remember back 20, 30 years ago, the wild west of the World Wide Web, where it was absolute insanity and craziness, and you could go to someone's personal website and it's got all the spinning flashy stuff and it looks crazy and they're ranting about whatever they're ranting about. That was the sort of the beautiful spirit of the original World Wide Web, that became this corporatized, homogenized, bland, Facebook feed of just everything looks the same. You all have to fit yourself into that particular corporate mold. And the idea of designing something yourself and having control over it has been weeded out of the population to the point where it's just, which service am I going to sign up to is basically the extent of your choice. And when that happens, we become the product that is being sold to the advertisers, which is what, how that works. So
we always were.
We put ourselves into that system. We can complain about the system all we want, but that's not going to do anything to change the system.
Okay, but I don't know how to program computers. I only know about the different types of genders.
Okay. Hey, I'll see you on tour in Las Vegas, Chicago, and Grand Rapids. In Chicago, it's stand-up and a live panel show. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and make sure you go to jimmydore.com.